Philadelphia's got this beautiful, versatile waterfront. We're just staring across the Delaware River right now in New Jersey. You can see the Ben Franklin Bridge up here. We got the Walt Whitman down that way. Absolutely stunning. But you also are probably familiar with this one big geographical problem with Philadelphia that keeps its waterfront from being as accessible as possible. That's right, it's Interstate 95. A huge divide between what the actual city is and the waterfront. This has been an ongoing problem since the interstate was completed around 1979, but the city is now gonna try and right their wrong with what's called the I-95 CAP project. And at a whopping cost of over $330 million, we really hope that it's gonna do its intended purpose, connecting the city back to the waterfront. This is Naveed Avery out of Philadelphia, and I'm gonna tell you all about it. If this is your first time to my channel and you want to know everything there is to know about living in Philly, the good, the bad, and the ugly, then go ahead and subscribe and tap that bell for notifications. That way, you'll be one of the first to know when I release a new video. You've definitely heard of Interstate 95 because it's this major highway that travels like pretty much the length of the East Coast. But it hasn't always been right here in Philly. I think the plans for 95 started in like the early 1900s, 1930s. And there was a lot of opposition at that time because, I mean, look at it. It's a big road that's dividing the center of the city from the waterfront. It used to be highly accessible to pedestrians, residents of the city, and now it's just not that easy to get to. But 95 was an important addition to the city because it connected the waterfront to all the factories and the airport. So it serves a very real purpose. In the beginning, when there were talks of building 95, there were people that were asking for it to be built underground or for it to have a cap on top of it, but none of that really panned out. There were a couple portions of 95 that were covered. There was the Scottish and Irish Memorial, and then just a few bridges to allow access to this side of 95 and Columbus Boulevard. But it's a really big deal to people because they were knocking down homes. I think like 2,000 row homes had to be demolished and people moved in order to build the highway. Fast forward a little bit and now it's one of the most highly trafficked interstates, or maybe the most highly trafficked interstate on the East Coast. And it's also responsible for a lot of the growth up in Bucks County. You have business parks and a lot of residential stuff being put up just outside of the city. And now every day people use it to commute in and out of town. So fast forward to the early 2000s and the impact of the 95 being there still resonates with people. So they started talking about this cap that would cover 95. Like, what does that mean, right? And now today, started in 2023, we got a 5-year, $330 million project to cover 95 with a big, wide open green space. Like I mentioned before, our waterfront is very versatile. We've got every single kind of thing down here on the waterfront. We're talking residential, businesses, green space, everything from single family homes and condos to restaurants. You got Morgan's Pier. You can eat on a boat at the Moshulu. You got Spruce Street Harbor Park for hanging out outside. And right here is the side of the old Blue Cross River Rink, which was a skate rink both summer and winter time, which will be relocated. But historically, there weren't that many ways to get from in the city to the waterfront. We had a couple pedestrian bridges. There are a couple streets down south that you could just walk over, but everything's been pretty few and far between. So you want to know, what exactly is to come? What are you going to do with $330 million, over $330 million? Right now, I'm going to tell you what's coming and then show you the progress of the demolition so far. I'll let you get your bearings real quick. If you look at the 6 lanes of traffic towards the back, that's going to be Interstate 95. And then closer to us, that's Columbus Boulevard. Basically what's happening is they're going to be building a park from Chestnut Street, which is at that blue construction vehicle, all the way to Walnut Street, which is the other side of that condo right there. And it's going to cover, from Front Street, it's going to cover 95, cover Columbus Boulevard, cover everything you see here until it gets down to the waterfront. And let me show you what the site of the demolition looks like, which at this point is pretty much leveled. I think they're just working on separating materials into piles for wherever material goes to die. Like we showed before, this is the old side of the Blue Cross River Rink. And next to it was the building that housed the rentals and the lockers for the river ring. As you continued along the waterfront, that was the plaza at Penn's Landing, where they hosted events, and you could just come and hang out whenever you wanted to. Nothing over there is going to disappear. The Seaport Museum is going to be the other side of the park. But you can see everything has been leveled, and they're separating all the materials into different piles. Now on this other side, I'll show you again, there used to be a bridge, the Walnut Street Bridge, on the other side of that crossed all the way over. And then we also had where the bus route would come from that blue guy was the Chestnut Street Bridge, and it would come over to the space where I'm currently standing, where the bus would then go and travel down this way and then up along Market Street to take you back into the city. You also had the Irish and Scottish Memorial that used to be right above you. You can see all the walls that they knocked down along the highway. Again, they just relocated it for the project. It's important to note that none of this stuff is going to disappear. I mean, while a lot of the park is going to be green space, it's still going to have everything that used to exist. The skating rink is going to be in there. You're still going to have the amphitheater on the water. There's going to be a plaza. There's going to be places for food and drink. So really, it's 11.5 acres of multi-use public space. So is this a project to be excited about or what? I mean, I'm going to say absolutely yes. You're telling me that putting a 12-acre park on the waterfront isn't great for this city? Think specifically about Old City, which it's come back around, but there were still some lingering effects from COVID. And a lot of times, that's really the end of like a tourist's destination, their path for where they're gonna be going, right? Once this park is here, tourists are gonna make their way all the way to the water no matter what. So that's gonna bring more people towards this part of the city. So great just for the vibrancy of this part of the city. And I shouldn't fail to mention that South Street, which also did have some pretty big impacts in terms of lower traffic and a lot of other stuff, a little bit of crime during those COVID years. It's going to be getting a pedestrian bridge that crosses over to this side of Columbus Boulevard. There is already a pedestrian bridge right there, which just pops you out onto the other side of Columbus, but does cross 95. But now they're going to make this big old roundabout that's going to put you plop right down where Chart House is. So you're going to be able to just walk from there. You do have people that say, well, what about the homeless people or people from Kensington? Are they going to be coming to the park, setting up encampments, doing their drugs out in the open here? And really the answer to that is, who really knows? But what I think is $330 million that's being poured into this project, right? You would think that if with that kind of investment in the city that they're going to be patrolling these areas, they want it to stay beautiful and clean. So I don't think that's really going to be a problem, but it is a concern that people do have. So there you have it, the I-95 CAP project, which I never told you means Central Access Philadelphia. If you learned something new today, go ahead and tap a like on this video. Subscribe if you want to keep updated on not just this project, but also everything that's going on around Philly, because my goal here is to give you a real-life person-side view, not bird's eye view, person's eye view of what's happening here in Philly, because you can't trust the news, you can't trust all the bad things that you hear. Take it from somebody who's living here. This has been Naveed Aberg out of Philadelphia, signing off.